Hello, fellow deal makers. Welcome to another episode of the Deal Scout. I'm your hostess, Susan Reilly, and today we have an interesting guest, Rudy Rudolfo. Rudy is a business broker with True Forte Business Group, and he has an interesting perspective on deals. So welcome, Rudy. How are you?
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. It's a beautiful day in Florida today, and we are in early spring and enjoying, at least where I am, enjoying some kind of coolish weather for spring. And I believe you're in Fort Myers. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so you're probably a little bit warmer than we are. Is it? Well, let's dive in. I want to know you grew up in Michigan, correct?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Then what was your family like in your childhood?
Well, I am the son of immigrants. They came from Cuba, and practically everyone in my family is an entrepreneur. So when they came over, um, not only did they have a job, but they had some type of business. It was either washing and ironing. My grandfather owned convenience stores. Then he went on to rental properties. My older brother owns a steel fabrication company. I myself owned a small car lot at one time and a credit repair business. So I grew up kind of knowing you had to have a second job
Right.
apart from your first job.
Okay.
And it's we've always learned about work ethic and, how you had to, not only put in your 8 hours, but dedicate yourself to whatever you were passionate about.
Well, I think it's interesting that your family's originated in Cuba. You were in Michigan, and now you've come back to Florida. That seems like a kind of an out of the way jump to go from Cuba to Michigan. Was there something that pulled you there?
Well, my parents had, the Midwesterner's dream, retire
Mhm.
and buy a home in Florida and move. And that's what they actually did. They started buying land in Cape Coral in the 80s.
Smart.
And, we as kids, we saw it as swampland.
Right.
Um, so my father passed away before he could see that dream, but he did leave us the land. So we did come down. My mother came first. I came around 2001. And this land, we started developing it and, purchasing other lots, building homes. And it was great, very, very fruitful until about 2008, 2009, when everything kind of, took a nosedive. And we got caught up in that. But it was a great learning experience and it didn't kill us. So, you got to move forward. And that's what we did.
Was it a lot of the land that you owned or that your family owned there in that Southwest area? Was that Grove land at the time?
It was mostly waterfront property,
Oh,
residential. At the time in Cape Coral, a lot of folks were building spec homes and they'd sell it and move on to the other one. My parents had the same business model, and that's what they planned on doing. And it was going great for a while. There were a lot of model homes to
mhm.
choose from. And basically, all you had to do was build one, and the buyers would come, like they come to Florida now.
Right, sure. So how did they pivot through the 2008, 2009 era that everybody still talks about because it was so devastating? But how did they pivot at that point with their business?
Well, we were heavy into construction
Mhm.
in real estate, and when everything just kind of slowed down, we had to reinvent the wheel. I went into car sales and sold cars for quite a long time, but I ended up backwards. Instead of me working at like a major dealership, I worked at a small one and come to find out the gentleman was struggling. He was burnt out. He didn't like the business. And he says, "You've never sold cars before, but you really have a knack for this. Would you be interested in buying this business?"
Wow.
So I asked him, "Why me? And why are you selling?" Like he said, he was in it for generations. His father started the business and he was burnt out and he was just looking for someone to take it over. And that was my first business venture down here in Florida.
Fun, fun. Yeah. So do you think that your upbringing with your parents choosing these different types of businesses all their lives and working these, you said second jobs, is that kind of how what steered you into wanting and then having your own car dealership? Did that steer you into wanting to sell businesses then for a living?
Well, what happened was this car lot that I purchased, I really didn't know anything about buying a business. So I didn't really do any due diligence or anything.
Hmm.
By the time I had it 3 months in, there were so many past dues and so many compliance issues that I was wondering, did I just buy a lemon? And I think I was just so excited to own a business and be my own person again and just kind of work for myself that I kind of looked past that. So when I come to realize the business was behind on taxes, it was behind on DMV fees, it was ready to just crumble. So my wife and I, we, just put our nose to the grindstone and lifted that business. At the same time, there was never any real business structure put together to purchase it. So it was never done with an attorney. It was never done with any bill of sale. It was just, we just went to Sunbiz and changed names.
Oh,
So this person, once he saw the business go up, said, I want it back.
right, right. Yeah.
And it got pretty nasty. So that right there inspired me to say, look, I'm not out, but I need to find a way to the next time I purchase a business, there's got to be a way. I did not know that business brokers existed at the time.
Hmm. So would you say I mean, that's a pretty big mistake. I mean, that's pretty big mistake not to do your due diligence and to not have it legally, the title transferred and everything, to have that all done legally. That's a big mistake. Would you consider that to be one of your biggest business mistakes ever?
Yes,
Yeah.
actually would be one of my biggest mistakes, but at the same time, that mistake pushed us forward into where I am now. I got a real estate license and I started in real estate and I just didn't want to give up.
Hmm.
This gentleman tried to take all the vehicles off the lot. He tried to empty our bank accounts. And this business did a night and day change. He took it back and he ran it to the ground again afterwards.
Oh, he did take it back. Oh, wow.
Yes, he
Okay.
did. And so we ended up losing that. And that's when I started to explore, you know, how can I buy a business legally and have all the documents and the paperwork. And that's kind of when I ran into business brokers, the
Mhm.
real estate industry, and I just started taking it small steps at a time.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that was really hard but productive educational mistake. So it's
Yes.
good. Yeah, it's good that you were able to work past that. And so that's kind of what triggered your interest in selling companies. And so you went into getting a real estate license. And did you start out of the gate as a business broker then?
I did not. As a child, my family, whatever business they own, you had a job. You worked there somehow. You were throwing out trash, whatever it was. Sometimes I would have to meet with the landlord,
Mhm.
or I would have to translate. So I started picking up all these terms, your estoppel letter, this and that and this. So all these terminologies just kind of carried over with me naturally. And as I got older, you know, the family would be like, hey, we want to buy this commercial building. Will you go talk to a realtor? Hey, we want to purchase this machinery. Will you figure out the value of it? So I had this built into me naturally. So when I moved to Florida, there were folks that needed a translator and I would translate for them. And we need to buy this building. We need we need you to present some terms for us in the purchase of this business. I wasn't taking the commission. I was just doing it because I had a love for it, a passion for it to help people. And
Mhm.
that's kind of what got me into this is I like to help people, but at the same time, you can get paid for it.
Sure, sure. So it's about you build a lot of relationships, I would think, by helping all those people. And did that help you then when you did decide to move into a business brokerage type of career?
Exactly. When I started selling real estate, I was selling to a lot of out of town buyers. And one of their hangups was, I'd love to buy the house, but I don't have a job down there. And I would ask them, well, what are you? They would say, well, I'm a plumber. Well, have you ever thought about owning your own plumbing business? And they were like, no. And so I would ask them, what if I found you a plumbing business? Would you buy the house and move down here? And they would tell me, yeah, that would be great. I would love to live in Florida and be a plumber. Yeah. And so I started finding these businesses and finding business brokers and just handing the customer over to them. And they were a very intriguing group. A lot of them are introverted. I love the technology where they just kind of shoot you out an NDA and a buyer profile. And next thing you know, I'll take it from here. Thank you very much. And so I started to explore it more. And that's when I met with the True Forte group.
Mhm.
And they took me on, took me under the wing, gave me some training, and made me the person I am today.
Interesting. Well, yeah, you just organically grew into a business broker from the experiences of your own with your
Exactly.
family and your businesses or your business, the car lot. And then helping other people find what they were looking for. That just organically got you to being here today, doing what you're doing. Yeah,
Yep.
that's great education that way. So what would you think is your biggest I always like to ask about relationships because I'm the perpetual networker myself. But what do you feel is your biggest relationship mistake that you've made over the years, and how did you recover from that to learn something?
It would probably be that the car lot that I bought, he was a pastor to a church.
Hmm.
So, he used a lot of the church in order to motivate me to purchase the business. I told him, listen, I don't have the funds you're looking for right now. I don't know where to get started. I had a lot of fear in me. And, he pushed me and, said, this is your calling. This is your mission. This is your destiny. And I liked the way he did it, but at the same time, I trusted him too much. I put too much trust in him,
Hmm.
in thinking, he's a pastor, so he's not going to do any harm to myself or my family. And it didn't. In business, you do have to have some reservations.
Sure,
You do.
sure. Yeah, yeah. Let me ask you though, back at the time when he was sort of persuading you to buy his business, did you feel in your gut that you should do it, or did you feel in your gut, oh, I'm not sure, or what were you feeling at that point?
And my gut was all fear.
Mm.
I don't have the money. I don't have the resources. I don't have anybody to support me. How am I going to do this?
Mhm.
And all signs led to no. And he told me, yes,
Mhm.
yes, I can make it happen for you. I don't want to, say anything bad about Christianity or anything, but
Mhm.
that's kind of where it was going. And listen, we all have our paths and we all have certain ways we get to where we are. In retrospect, I see it as something positive that happened to me because
Sure.
it made me a stronger person.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, buying a business, and so do I, being a business broker. I mean, it is a scary experience, whether it's, especially when you've never done it before. It's a scary experience, but it's hard to look back and say, was that a little voice telling you that this is a mistake to go forward? Or was it just fear that you would have had regardless? And now we know the answer. It's fear you would have probably had regardless, but it's also fear that it wasn't a good thing because this guy wasn't on the up and up with you.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. live and learn. And it sounds like you learned a lot. So I guess it's all okay in the end. But well, so with everything you've learned, what makes you different from other business brokers out there?
Well, the experiences that I've been through helps me relate more, not only to the seller, but to the buyer as well. I understand your fear. I understand your reservations. And sometimes fear holds folks back from asking certain questions or negotiating certain terms. And what I do is I build this relationship and talk to them and let them know. First of all, number one, I'm transparent with everything. And I look for transparency in the deal on both sides. And I want them to know that I want to make everybody comfortable in their decision because I've been through that.
Mhm.
And I want everybody to be sure of what they're doing.
So you pay more attention to due diligence. Is that what you do?
I pay attention to every aspect of the deal. If there's a family involved, I ask them who's going to be working the business, who's going to be purchasing the business, who's the decision maker. A lot of spouses, want to be part of the decision, whether it's selling or buying. And
Mhm.
sometimes that's what could make or break a deal is the spouse, you know, they have reservations. So I try to make sure all those reservations are covered.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. Well, do you see with the reservations that people have, do you see that they're common reservations, right, between buyers of businesses? They have the same, like you had years ago when you bought the car lot, the same, can I do this? I don't think I can afford it. I don't know what I'm doing. Those scary thoughts, those are pretty universal, I would guess. But do you think there's other fears that you see that maybe aren't so noticeable with sellers? Do you see, or excuse me, with buyers? Do you see them having other fears?
There's a lot of fears. Sometimes it's relocation.
Mm, okay.
I talk to a lot of folks, from out of state and out of the country, and they're scared. They don't know anyone here. They don't know where they're going to live, where their children are going to go to school. And I take it upon myself to let them know, the neighborhoods that they may like, schools that their children may want to go to, activities for their children. I had one gentleman, his son was a soccer star, and he wanted to make sure that his son could still continue to grow in soccer here in the United States as compared to Europe.
Right, right. So a lot of times there's other things other than can I afford it and I don't know how to run a business. It's also can I get my son in soccer and a good program in soccer, right?
Exactly. It's just about being down to earth with them, knowing that they are regular people,
Hmm.
we're regular people, and that we're here to help them.
Sure, sure. Yeah. Do you see yourself doing this still in 10 years from now?
Absolutely. The average
Yeah.
age in Florida, probably for a business broker, is about 70. That's a joke. I'm kidding. But there are a lot of business brokers, in their 70s, in their 80s as well. They're doing great. It keeps your mind sharp. It gives you a sense of community, a sense of value, a sense of purpose. I love it, and I see myself as a mentor in the future with all these experiences and, the more deals that I make gives me more experience. And I really want to mentor
Okay. Okay. Mentor like other business brokers?
other business brokers, future entrepreneurs, um, you know, young children. I wasn't really a strong student, but I always had business savvy and a way to sell. And sometimes these kids need that type of attention so they can harness those skills and become, great entrepreneur leaders.
Yeah. Yeah. So with your mentorship desire to do that, do you have any kind of ideas? Maybe I don't know if you do them now or in the future, but ideas of how you could go about mentoring people to in that entrepreneur space?
I do give a lot of advice to folks that, come to the United States. My grandfather, that's one thing that he always dedicated himself to was when folks came from Cuba, he made sure that, they would have clothes, he would find them a job, an apartment or whatever. And I help folks when it comes to, folks say, hey, look, I want to open an ALF. Can you help me out? Where can I go? My wife works for the county, so she helps folks out when it comes to getting their local business taxes, registering vehicles. Sometimes vehicles transfer over with businesses, and I refer them to her as well.
Okay. Okay. So it sounds like when I asked you the question earlier about how are you different as a business broker, what I'm hearing now, what you just said, is that you help business owners not just looking at the financials and looking to see if it's a business that they want to buy, but also all the other ancillary things that go into someone relocating to Florida maybe from Europe or from South America or wherever. But you help with all those things, and your wife sounds like she's jumping in to help out as well.
Exactly. We're
Is that
we're
right?
very passionate about it. We love the business that we had, and we continuously look for other opportunities. And even after the deal is done, I let them know, reach out to me, whatever you need. If you need to transfer a title, if you need information on local business taxes, um, city ordinances, reach out. We're here to help you.
Sure, sure. Okay. Well, so what do you look for in a good deal? What is your definition of that?
Well, a great deal, that's going to be that absentee business owner that's been in business for at least 7 years, works about 20 hours a week. He's got a great key personnel in place. So if he's sick, they can take over for him. And, he's showing at least 20% growth every year. Those are great deals. But when you start in this, those deals don't fall in your lap. Those fall in the broker's lap. So what I've learned is sometimes you have to, when you find a deal, you have to make that deal happen. There's a lot of folks out there that have businesses and they're scared. They may be behind in taxes, or they may not have their P&Ls all in order, or their tax returns all in order. And as a business broker, we have a good network when it comes to bookkeepers, accountants, attorneys, and stuff like that.
Sure.
So I know the fear, these folks don't want to reach out, but some of those deals, you can actually turn those into gold, like I did with a garage door company. He was behind his taxes for about 3 years. He was going to therapy. He was so stressed out. They were embezzling money from him and everything.
Mm.
And when I came in, I took a look at his P&Ls. I introduced him to a bookkeeper. We had a deal in 2 months. It took 8 months to close, but he retired at 37 years old with about $3 million in his pocket. So it was a good deal. He was very happy to move on with his life and, travel, which is what he wanted to do.
So you're thinking, you feel that you can turn a business that is in disarray, and you can turn it into one that's profitable. You've said to me before, you have a way of turning it into gold. Um, and that's the way you do that is what you just described is getting them stabilized, right? Getting the business owner, the financials and the money stabilized. Is that right?
Exactly. There are a lot of cash buyers on the sidelines right now, and they're looking for the next opportunity. And if you know how to find it and present it, which is what I did, there's a chance for that person to get out of that business if they want to.
Sure, sure. Yeah. And you have a lot of resources. You mentioned CPAs and attorneys. Do you have operations people and marketing people and those kinds of services in your relationship database as well?
Absolutely. Our brokerage handles a lot of really great marketing, and we have good operations. And apart that there's a few other resources that I have, but Yeah, it's all about putting everything together and creating that package and presenting it.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. Well, that's great. I have enjoyed talking to you, and I enjoyed hearing your story. I think it's fascinating. Again, like I said in the beginning, that you went from Cuba to Michigan to Florida. That's an interesting route, and about your family and all your businesses and yours, and your mistakes and your successes. And sounds like you have a wonderful wife who's helping you year after year with your pursuits. I think that's you guys are probably a really good team.
We are. I'm
Great.
blessed to have her.
And what is her name, by the way?
Her name is Sharon.
Sharon. Okay. Well, Sharon is a good woman. I'm glad you are a team. That's awesome.
Thank
So,
you.
fellow deal makers, I invite you to reach out if you have further questions or want guidance on an issue that Rudy has discussed today. Click on the link below, and we at Deal Scout will get you connected to Rudy. I am always on the hunt for guests like him that have an interesting story to tell. So, we want to hear more about sourcing deals, and we want to hear more about being on the selling side of a business, and being on the buying side of a business. So if you would like to appear on the Deal Scout, I'd be excited to have you. Reach out to me. My email is susan@thedealscout.com. So that's it for today. I hope you all have a wonderful, terrific day, and we'll see you again soon. This is Susan with the Deal Scout.